Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're glad you joined us today. Usually start by saying life is so daily. This is the day the Lord has made, and we want to rejoice and be glad in it. And as Africans, we don't apologize for being who we are. We're not just religious people, but those of us in um, this podcast, our engineer, and I know I can speak on behalf of our guest today as well, that we believe that life becomes more meaningful when you have a relationship with your creator. And that's a discussion for another time. We could get into that. And we've had different people as well talk to us about that. But for today, this is Today's Africa with your host, Dr. FM. And I'm delighted that you've joined us today. We go live every Saturday at 11 Eastern Standard Time. And to talk about matters pertaining to Africa. There are all kinds of things happening in Africa, just like any other continent. And for us to have this platform, it's just wonderful. So we're very, very grateful that Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the #1 music radio, Caribbean music, Afrobeat, African, Caribbean music. And we're just so delighted that you're here. So we do have a special guest, and we don't want to waste any more time because we have been waiting. We're here. He is here. And in a moment, I'm going to bring him in. But I want you to take a moment as well, if you haven't done that, to log in and subscribe, like, and share this channel with other people in your own tribe, in your own network, as we say. So we're delighted today that we do have a Rev.Caoch Lovejoy Tirivepi. He is an international leader. He actually leads a ministry that is called Lead International Ministries. And he's also a pastor. He's someone who is very, very passionate about connecting with his community. And the last time I checked, and I don't think that has changed, he is somewhere in Colorado. So he will be with us, and he will share with us some of the things that are happening in his life briefly before we get into our topic. Our topic today is a loaded one. We're talking about leading in unplanned and chaotic contexts. Now, you can be assured that this is a loaded topic, not just in Africa, but anywhere in the world. But we're going to be looking at Africa today, and of course, our brother is someone who is very well versed with Africa as a continent, and also has been to different parts of the world as a leader. So we're really, really delighted. So we're in for a real treat. And again, this is your host, Dr. FM, on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And we're delighted that you have joined us today. And we are live in over 100 different countries around the world. So, Rev.Caoch Lovejoy Tirivepi.
Yes, sir. How are you doing, Dr. FM, and also our host? We just want to thank you so much for the opportunity. I've been meaning to come on, but I've been so busy, and but I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to try to address one of the most powerful topic in terms of the how do we lead or leading during the chaotic times that we're going through. And I think in life sometimes, gives you, throws lemons at you or throws a curveball at you, and you don't understand or you don't know how to lead in those times. So I want to thank you so much for having me.
We are delighted you are here. There was a time we had set up something, it didn't work. Life is so daily, my friend, but we're delighted that today it is possible for us to be with you today. So we're really, really looking forward to this. Would you tell us briefly about yourself before we dive into our topic for the day? I'm really excited about the topic, by the way. Very excited.
Thank you so much. Well, I was born in Zimbabwe, and in the early, in late 80s, in 1988 or 89, I came to the United States, went to school here, and graduated from here. Then I pastored a church here in the mountains for 12 years. And then after I pastored the church for 12 years, the Lord sent us back to Africa, worked with Hagar Institute in Maui and Singapore, and I'll teach leaders from all third world countries. And I did that for 10 years. After 10 years of that, I went back to Africa, and the Lord had I had a great opportunity. We have a wonderful ministry in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and also Uganda and Kenya. But I had the opportunity and the joy of going to over 28 countries in Africa. And it's amazing that, now that we have raised leaders around the world, and the Lord has brought me back again to the United States to build a base for launching more leaders now around the world. Oh, and we have 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls, and our kids are doing so well. They're all over the world. The one in China, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and the United States. They're all over the world. So we have a very, very big family.
Very international family.
Very international, yes. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Listen, we're just delighted that you're here, and thank you for taking a moment just to let us know some of the things that you've been doing. I know that leadership is something that is very, very close to your heart, and I'm aware of some of the things that you have done in Kenya, in Uganda, Zimbabwe, and South Africa, and of course what is happening in the US. We have had opportunities to share briefly about that, so we're really, really delighted. Now, a friend of mine, I remember correctly, I think I was at Trinity Western University in British Columbia. There was a professor by the name Guy Saffold who taught leadership, and he said leadership is not just taking people to where they want to go, but it's taking them where they should go. Now, that is loaded, and I never really thought much about it, but I'd written it down, and over the years, I've had the opportunity to reflect on that. Now, you and I agreed on this topic, leadership or leading in unplanned and chaotic contexts or situations. Now, things show up in leadership that are not on the agenda, that are not on the plan. Things happen, people die. People move on, people resign, there's change in leadership, all kinds of things. And you are saying, listen, you can't just do this by the seat of your pants. You have to have some principles. Now, we are looking forward to what you're going to share with us. And obviously, I'm hoping that we'll be able to build on these principles that you have put together over the years, and see how best we can implement them. So
awesome.
What comes to mind when you think of these opportunities to lead, in unplanned and chaotic situations?
Well, Dr. FM, this is at the heart of my life. When you look around the world right now, just look at what is going on in the United States, in the Americans, in Africa, in Asia, and even in Europe right now. I think it's time that it starts with leadership and ends with leadership. And I think Dr. Gail Stafford was very right. So how do you help people who are in a very traumatic situation or who are going through difficult times, and then as a leader, you are brought into that leadership to try to solve the problems? And it, like I said, it starts with the leader. Let me give the analogy, what my concept that I've developed, and hopefully we're putting it into a book. It's what I want to call transformational leadership in a crisis. But I've used what we call Padare principles. Padare, it's a Shona word of multi-sectoral approach of solving the problem. Let me repeat again. Instead of you as a leader thinking that you have all the answers to what is going on, you need to come to a place where we call padare principles, or where we come together using the Ubuntu leadership philosophy. And the Ubuntu philosophy leadership says, I am because we are. Because we are, I am. Let me read that again. Using the multi-sectoral of principles of Padare, but coming into our way of life and how we solve problems using Ubuntu. Ubuntu now says, I am because we are, and because we are, I am. And the principle, and because of time, we might not be able to go to all the levels of leadership in crisis, or how do we transform community transformation coming out of a crisis. I have had opportunities to go into conflict countries. I was in the DRC. I was in Somalia. I was in Eritrea. I was sent to go to, before the crisis in Libya. I was in Tripoli. I went to Tunisia. I was in South Africa when the crisis was happening and the transition of leadership. But what I have seen is this: when you are faced in, maybe it might be in a personal relationships or family situation or leadership capacity or your company capacity, the problem that happens is when there is fire going on, don't just bring a fire hose to try just to come in and just think that you're going to just bring all the fire down, because you might actually create more chaos in the situation instead of you becoming the solution to the problem. You actually might come into the situation and become a problem. I can give you an examples of our leaders in Africa who took over by coups or took over by the gun, and then later on they've now become the problem that people have in the whole continent. It's because these leaders don't understand that although they've now come into a chaotic situation, but they're the ones that are now even causing more chaos to that thing. So my principle number one that I try to have leaders when you're now brought into a chaotic situation is, number one, stop. Don't do anything. Stop. S-T-O-P. Stop. Leaders go in sometimes, they talk too much, and they have their own agenda of what they want to try to do. Let me give you a good example. People out in the Western countries, they see problems in Africa. Instead of allowing the Africans to become to solve their own problems, guess what happens? They already have their fire hose or how they want to solve the problem. And then they just come in and they repeat the same mistakes that has happened before. It's because we have not taken the time just to stop. So what do I mean by stopping? Stop so that you can, I'm a Christian. So the first principle that I do is S, okay, in stop. Seek God first. Here, what is God doing in that situation? I'm not trying to say, when you are in that situation, when there's fire there, don't do it. I'm trying to say stop first. When you stop at that moment, look around and seek what God is doing, or seek where your people are at first. You seek the face of the Lord and you seek your leaders. Find who are the leaders, who are the people that can help you take you to the next level. So the principle of stopping, sometimes it's also used in the fire drill training. When the firemen come over to the place, there are guys who are there to go and attack the fire. but there's a leader who is at the central command, who is listening to everything and looking at everything. They look at the building structure. They look at the exits. They look at, the first thing that they looking is the people. Leaders need to seek the face of God first, but this thing that you need to seek is seek the people. Look for the people first. When you look for the people first, then you're able to solve your problem. What happens is, when leaders are placed in a situation, maybe it's a financial company that's going down, or it's a company that's not doing well, guess what they do? Then they come in and they take control. They worry about the finances. They worry about the assets of the company. No, your greatest asset that you have is go into a situation, find who is on your side, find who is in your team. Even in marriage, for example. Seek each other, find each other, instead of you guys just throwing stones at each other, throwing bombs at each other. Let's find each other so that we know what what is it that we need to do. So the first principle is seeking. I think when you go into a situation where there's a crisis, try to seek where the other people are at. Okay, let me give you a good example. They might be looking at an elephant, but they're blindfolded. They don't see that it is an elephant. And they might be holding on to the leg of an elephant. And they will tell you that the elephant is so big, it's like a big, tree. And someone might be holding on to the trunk. And they might say, wow, it's something else completely. And someone might be holding on to the tail. And they might be looking at it and say, it's a snake. But guess what? All of us are looking at the same thing, but we're looking at it from a different angle. So let's seek each other, find where we are at, find where people are first before you take them anywhere. I love what Dr. Gayfield said, to say a leader has the ability to take people where they need to be. But first, before you take them where they need to be, you need to know where they are. It's like, when you are taking a new bus and you're driving the bus and the people in your bus are fighting. Stop driving the bus when people are still fighting in your bus, because you have not solved anything. You might take them to that destination where they need to be, but there is no healthy relationship in your bus. So the first thing that you want to do, you seek God, you seek where the people are, and then you place them in the right seats in the bus. Now they might
this is
right now.
This is very insightful and very, very interesting. And thank you for bringing these insights. And I'm just listening to you, and I'm just saying, wow. I mean, just you unpacking the stop.
Yes.
Because oftentimes when you come into a chaotic situation, you want to put out the fire, but you don't even know anything else other than I'm just here to put out the fire. But there is more to this. And you're saying take time. So this is wonderful. To those of you who just joined us, this is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio with your host, Dr. FM. And we're here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And we're delighted that you have joined us. We're talking about leadership in unplanned and chaotic situations. And we have Rev.Caoch Lovejoy Tirivepi here, who is an international leader, someone who is very well versed in leadership techniques, leadership training, leadership development, really globally. He has worked a lot in Africa. I mean, born and raised in Africa, and of course, now serving from the United States of America. We won't hold that against you, brother, that you are in the US, but you are African the last time we checked. So the point you made about seeking God, I think that's very, very important. And then you said seeking people. You need to know who is on your bus.
Yeah.
Who are those people? Because for you to just, parachute yourself in, you may do more damage than good, like you pointed out.
Amen. And I think that's what a lot of leaders have done. They've just gone into the situation, try to put the fire, but they forget that the first thing that why we're putting the fire out is because we want to save the people.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. So we've stopped. Okay.
T.
Okay.
When you're in that situation, once you get the facts about where God wants you to take, which is mission, vision, and direction, and then where the people are at now, then you need to think through that situation. Don't try to start going somewhere with these people without thinking through what has happened. And we do what we call thinking through. If you guys come to our workshop and seminar, when we're doing this, we put groups in different groups to say, when you are a leader, you're given this situation, how are you going to get the people out, and what is the thinking process there? So it is the brainstorming. It is also gives the opportunity for the leader, and we go into the principles of listening, and how do you listen to other views that are different from yours so that you think. You see, a leader is not afraid of criticism. A leader is not afraid of chaos. You can thrive when there's chaos. Instead of you running away, but you become the center of what I'm calling a think tank. Establish a think tank so that ideas and people can start coming in together to help you through that process. Sometimes, Francis, one of the things that I had opportunity was going to Africa when I was working for Transformation Africa, which was a prayer movement for the whole of continent of Africa. And so what they would teach me is that when I go into the country, before I try to give them solutions of what to do, I try to find out what is God already doing there. Find out, think through the process, hear what God needs to happen. Let me give you a very wonderful example of Deborah, the prophetess. She actually is known as the prophet in the Bible. Deborah, there's crisis of leadership in Israel. And Deborah, one of the things that she does not go running for office. What does Deborah do? Deborah hears what's going on, and she goes to the mountain, and she establishes a prayer mountain to pray through the issues and then listen to the people's problems. So the Bible says that in Judges, the people started coming to Deborah with their problems. And then they found out that, this person really thinks through these issues. And then she says, how do we fight the enemy? And guess what she does? She has never fought. She has never gone to battle. But because she's now thinking through this year, because she cares for the people, she goes and asks one of the army commanders to say, can you go and fight the Moabites? And you know what? This commander has been trying to fight the Moabites the rest of his life. He just needed the Deborah to literally help him or encourage him or lead him into his destiny. And she actually says, I have never fought. And then guess what this guy says? The commander says to Deborah, Deborah, I cannot go unless you go with me. And the guy was like, I cannot do it on my own. But if you're taking the leadership position, we will go. And then she takes the leadership position. And before she knew it, she's no longer a prayer warrior, but she's now a judge, or she's a leader of a nation. And that's what I'm talking about, leaders. Don't rush. Think through what is going on and hear what God is doing. So, the process of thinking through, like I said, we do exercises and then we help people think through. I mean, for example, let's just pick a country. Let me pick Zimbabwe, for example. Let's think through what's going on there. They've tried to bring their currency. How many times? They've tried 5 different currencies. and they continue to bring another currency to try to solve their problem. The leaders are not thinking through to hear what are the issues and why is it that the currency that we're bringing is not accepted by the people. If they just listen to everybody's ideas, they will actually come up with a solution. But the problem is they think that they even brought one that they say it's based, it's wedged against the gold. When you look at the currency itself, the current, because the current flows, they forgot that this currency that we're trying to bring has to have trust, and it has to have, transparency. And as a result, you can bring in solutions, but if you've never thought through the solution, you become the problem again. And I don't know if you want to comment on that one before I go to O.
You know what? That is very insightful, and thank you for bringing this aspect of thinking through, because you can have a good heart, but if you're not processing things logically,
amen,
your good heart can actually lead you into serious problems, and you end up in the deep end that you are not even able to come out of. So you're saying it is important to think through. And then you brought the element of listening, which oftentimes when we are thinking, there's the danger of you becoming the only voice you listen to, because you're me, myself, and I, you're thinking things through.
Yes.
But you are saying you need to realize there are people outside of you. The example you gave of Deborah, who now then goes to someone and says, listen, now you can do this. And the person turns around and says, no, you're coming with me. That's a conversation. That's a conversation. And that's a beautiful example where there's communication, there's thinking things through, there's prayer, you're seeking God, you want to save people, but you're also listening.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've heard this one that if you're just a leader and nobody's following,
yes,
you just it's just like you're taking a walk in the park. It's just
That's
you
right.
yourself, and there's nobody behind you. So
That's right.
this is wonderful. Thank you, sir.
And two, Dr. Francis, what happens is this here. Sometimes a leader, you reach the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
You keep going. You just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you just keep spending money. You just keep doing the same thing, but nobody's taking the time to say stop.
Yeah.
And then we continue to do same thing, and we get the same results. And then let me go to O. Observe. Mm-hmm. Before you go into the battlefield, observe. Observing means that I'm focused on my vision, I'm focused on my purpose, and I'm focused on my lane that I am, the line that I have. I'm staying in my lane. I'm not going to try to be like somebody else or try to be something else. Mm. I'm going to be open and real to you, because I think this is we're talking about leaders.
Yes,
we've talked about governmental leaders who try now to do things that they're not able to. But, when I'm saying observe and stay in your lane, it's so that you don't distract other leaders that are coming alongside you. You don't want to go and try to go into their lane, but you want to lead in your lane, but then all of them now follow you in your lane, in the lane that you want to do and how you want to do things. And then the other thing that happens with leaders who don't stay in their lane, you start doing things that God has not told you to do. So when you're observing things, you start aligning the people in your organization and the vision, or you start aligning the resources and the vision and the objectives of the things that you're trying to do. Sometimes some of these leaders, they dream big things, but they don't have the resources to be able to do that. So I go back and say, observe your inventory of the people, the place, the plan that you have. Is it matching up in terms of what is it that you want to do?
Yeah. Oh wow, this is loaded. This is loaded. I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you, Reverend Tirivepi, and I'm saying, how do we? Maybe this is something we need to talk about at the very end. How do we create opportunities for you to share these kinds of nuggets in a larger context? Because right now we're doing this, and yes, we do have quite a crowd of listeners and viewers at the moment, but I'm just wondering. I mean, we need definitely to have something much bigger. That's something we're going to talk about later. Observing and observation. I'm just listening to you. Yes, sir. I'm just listening to you.
Let me give an example of marriage. People in the house. I'm using the same principles of leadership, but also as a husband, you're leading your wife. Before you start react, and I'm going to use, after stop, we're going to do react, REACT. I'm giving you those principles again. But the stop, for example, observe at home what's going on. Before you start talking, before you start just lashing, see what's going on. What's going on with your wife? What's going on with your children? Do you know where they are at right now? Do you know what's going on with your family? Do you know what's going on in your church? Do you know what's going on in your country? And before you just lash out, you need to observe. So then after observing, we need to go to P. P is coming up to planning. You need to plan and have strategies on how to go and put the fire, or how to react to the chaotic situation. As a leader, you need, after you have stopped, after you have thought, after you have observed, you need now to come up with a strategy. And this is where we talk about now shifts, shifting gears. You need to shift gears. Maybe, I drive a manual car, so you cannot drive your car in first gear the rest of its journey. It has to go to another level. So you need to allow the whole machine, or the whole organization, or the whole church to shift from first gear to second gear. But before you shift from first gear to second gear, as a leader, you now know that I have a clutch that I need to put in. You need to know when to excel, or when to, not to accelerate, but when to slow down, and what speed you're going in. Because you will ruin everybody if you just go in there and think that you're just going to go and take them there. They might not be ready. They might not be ready, and you can kill that whole organization. Let me give you a good example. OK Zimbabwe, great organization. They had a market that they wanted to, a niche market. And OK Zimbabwe started becoming big by going into the townships, not staying into the city. So they became a product for the people. But the problem that happened with I wish I could give them this principle and teach their leaders this principle. The problem that happened with it's when SPA started coming in. It's when, what's the other one? The big one that's coming to Zimbabwe now. Competitors. There's two competitors from South Africa that started coming in, or ShopRite or somewhere. So what happened is they panicked. Instead of staying in their lane and knowing their market and knowing where they are effective, they tried to copy these big guys, and you cannot play in the boys' leagues if you don't have the capacity to be able to take your company to where it needs to be. And so leadership, sometimes it's whereby these leaders now start spending a lot of money and a lot of the profits of what they're supposed to be putting into their profit to the people, and they start using the profit to try to become like somebody else. So when you're planning, your plan needs to be, measurable, needs to be time, not to be, make sure that you're taking the people at the right time and you are staying in your lane. So when you're planning now, okay, it helps you now to say, okay, because remember, we are leading in chaotic time, but then it gives you time to say, how do I, as a leader, react? Because you're going to react anyway. So your reaction is very important. So now that I have taken the time to stop, I now need to react to try to solve this problem of where we are in chaos. So R, the first in react, that's now principle number 2, the react. But on the react, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 principles there. So the first one is you need to reach out to the best people in your team. Before you reach out to everybody, reach out to the best people in your team. Let me give you a good example. Jesus Christ did not start with the multitude. He started with a few. He only started with 3. Andrew goes, and now Andrew brings his brothers. Andrew says, man, come and see this man. And then Peter, they bring somebody else. So start with the few. When you're reacting, don't react with your emotions. React by looking for the right leaders in your team. When you react with the right leaders in your team, remember Jesus Christ, one of the strategies that he used, in reacting to the community, or before he goes into the community, and people don't even realize this. In Luke chapter 10, what does he do? He had over 72 other disciples who were not part of the core disciples. And Jesus did a very powerful strategy that a lot of leaders don't do. He sent them out 2 by 2 to go first and check the place out, and check those demons in that city and see what are things like that before he even went there. Did he not know what was going on? He knew. But he was teaching biblical principles of leadership to say, you guys, before you go into the city, send people out, check it out, hear what's going on. So you're reaching out first before you start putting your program. Then after that, Jesus Christ came in. I love the strategy when you're reaching out. Jesus Christ says, pray that the Lord of the harvest will send more laborers into the field. What he was saying is send so that I can send more people ahead of me. By the time when you went in the city, he says, bless every house and bless whoever gives you the food. And whoever did that, that's where Jesus went, because it was now solving the problem in that city. After he goes into the city, boom, transformation happens into the city. But it starts by how you react. You don't react there by just talking. You react by, wow.
Excellent. Oh, wow. You are right on the money, sir. You are right on the money. This is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are live here on Today's Africa, and we're talking about leadership in unplanned and chaotic contexts. Life is so daily. As a leader, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter whether you are a leader in position, a leader in office, or a leader in practice. The truth of the matter is every leader is a leader in practice. We do have some people who are really figureheads in organizations, and they are there to maintain a position, but people look around and sometimes you wonder what is really going on here. But you, sir, Coach Rev. Lovejoy Tirivepi, you were saying there has to be principles that we need to adhere to before we can actually function, which to me sounds like we need to have these kinds of principles talked about to everyone who is aspiring to be a leader, so that they know when things happen, these are the things you'll be able to fall back on. One of the things I'm just imagining now is in some of those places where you have shared these kinds of things, people are looking behind after all the casualties and all that, and looking back and saying, gee, I wish somebody had told me about all this before all this blew in my face, right? So you're saying we need to reach out. We need to reach out to the best team players, because there are people on your team, and you need to find them and connect with them.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So that's the R. So what's the E?
The E is you need to show empathy. Your team needs to show empathy to the people that you're going to be leading. Let me use the analogy that you gave with, remember Dr. Guy
Suffold.
In his book, one of the things that he does, he shows that, leaders, before you start leading people to where they need to go, I mean, he talks about the empathy. Sometimes they might need to be fed. Sometimes they need to be taken out of their whatever situation that they are in.
What do they need?
Okay, what do they need? Let me give you a good example there, in showing empathy to the people, and say, I empathize with people sometimes who are in the streets or who are in chaotic situation, to say, what is it that they need before I try to give them what I think they need. There was a lie that we used to share with people, that teach a man how to fish and then he'll feed himself the rest of his life. That was a half truth. There's no truth in that. And we keep telling them, we're trying to help you how to fish. That's half a truth there. Let me help you expanding it by empathizing with the people. They might know how to fish. They might know how to work. They might even have degrees. Zimbabwe has, I'm sorry, I keep using my Zimbabwe because that's where I'm from anyway. Zimbabwe, South Africa, we have the most educated people. And yet they are the most that are suffering. Why? Because nobody has now said, you know what, these people need a pond or need a river or an ocean to go and fish. You might know how to fish, but if you don't have a place to go fishing, you're not going to catch nothing. That's another principle. Another principle of empathy is, do they have the license or the ownership of that pond or of that market? Can they make their things, and then we make sure that they have a place where they can able to sell or to do something with it? And that's a lie. So the fourth lie was that, do they have a market for it? I can eat fish all day, but I cannot just go on eating fish the rest of my life. I've got to sell something so that I help my family, so that they can also become self-supportive. So I'm saying is, it's time we become very serious in asking the questions. What are the needs of the people? And then that also brings us to A. We analyze. A leader is able to analyze. Once you know what their needs are, analyze the facts. Prioritize their facts, their needs, not your need. And then once you prioritize their needs and once you prioritize their facts, then we're able to come up with strategic places, look after the war. After the war is going on, they come up with what's called a Marshall Plan. Marshall Plan, it's literally saying, how do we rebuild this whole nation, or the whole city, or this whole company, or this whole village? You see, you need to come up with what I'm calling that, a plan of action that has come through analyzing the data. And the way how you get the data, for example, is from the police, from the teachers, from the nurses, from all the community. It comes out to that Padare concept, that you cannot do it on your own. Get all the facts. Once you sit on the table, for example, if I'm given the opportunity to try to analyze what's going on in some of the companies, I try to come out and look at the data. What is it that we're doing? Who are our customers? Who are our clients? What's going on here? And then once we have the data, then you are able to come up with what I call, you see, once you have the plan, continue to care for the most, that's number C. Continue to care for the people, not the assets and things that you're trying to do. Let me give you a good example, and I'm glad that it's happening. And I'm going to say a very controversial thing here, but I know we have leaders in Africa who were very upset when America cut the U.S. aid. It sent a very serious message to all of our African leaders. And some of the people were calling me, I'm an American, so it's okay. But why are they, they say, why are they cutting the aid? Let me help you. My leaders. You cannot continue to become codependent on the outsiders to solve your problems.
Yeah.
We have become much codependent on the system, on the other people. But I'm talking about caring for the people so that I can bring them to T, which is training them, equipping them, aiding them, developing and mentoring them to become self-sustained so that they don't continue to become dependent on another government assistance program.
My brother, you are really, really making me angry. You're making me angry in a very good way. That's why I'm saying this with a big smile on my face.
Yes,
because
sir.
the things you're talking about are so real and so practical, and yet oftentimes, because we are not wired to pre-wire ourselves, we get into serious trouble and we don't know how to go about this. As soon as you said, you know what, I know that there were people who were very upset that, the US cut out aid, and we're like, yeah, they can choose what they want.
That's
We
right.
should not have been dependent on that. Many of our countries have been independent for years. I was watching this video of some of the things that are happening in Burkina Faso. More power to President Ibrahim Traore. And they were saying since 1960, is it 63? Yes. When they got independent, he said there's hardly paved roads. And this is the first time.
Yes.
That they are seeing that the president is actually, talk about good relationships. He goes to Ghana. He gets all this equipment which he doesn't have in his country. And he says, no, I am not going to ask somebody else to do this. The government is going to do it. And now that he has invested in his people, the government, the people who are now going to be doing this, he has nothing to worry about because he knows things will be done right because he has invested in them. And I'm listening to you, we're talking about caring and then training them, equipping them to making sure that, it's not just you going to fish.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that you have a pond where you can fish. And we want to make sure that you have legitimacy to this pond. Yes. And we want to ensure that there is more coming into this pond so that you can thrive and not just survive.
Yes.
I just received a comment here from someone in Harare in Ndlovu. He says, great program. You're absolutely right, Ndlovu. You're absolutely right. And so there are things that we need to wake up to. And what you're doing, my brother, as we come toward the end of our program here, we still have a few more minutes. So, but I want us to be thinking what do we need to do to make sure that these nuggets you're sharing with us are really shared with the broader listeners and residents and citizens of our great continent of Africa? You are a Pan-Africanist, I know. You've been to so many countries in Africa. And I think this topic on leading, in unplanned and chaotic situations is things that you have seen in real life.
Yes.
And now what I'm going to put you on the spot here because I want to, because I know you can handle that. What are some of the things that have happened with Lead International that you have had to not reinvent, but you fell back on something that brothers and sisters already knew about, and you were able to bring this organization and this ship to continue sailing? It's been around for several years now, and it's still sailing. You are developing leaders in Nachivale, as they say sometimes in Uganda. You are developing leaders in Somalia, in Kenya, in South Africa, and Zimbabwe, and Zambia, and all this. What has allowed Lead International to sail after something had happened? Do you feel me? Do you hear what I'm getting at?
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I also
share with us briefly.
I also see it as a.
You don't have to go into a whole lot of details, by the way, but
yes,
just give us enough to understand what we're dealing with here.
I'm going to do that. There is one of your listeners there who says that would it be possible to touch on the leadership crisis in Africa, Burkina Faso, please, Enka. I'm just going to give it. You've already talked about Traore and what's going on there. There's a new generation of leaders that's coming up, and what upsets me the most, Dr. FM, is the codependency on Africa that we have been going through. For example, the Frank's currency, which was now controlled in France, and yet the people in Africa were suffering because of the young people and young men who were digging the gold, who did not understand that we can now help with that gold and refine it ourselves. And now it was taken out of the country, although they had said that they're independent, but they were not independent. The Western world continued to control the resources of Africa, and they're still doing that. Leaders need to wake up. Leaders need to wake up and say that we need to take care of our own resources. Let me just, we need to get back on this one here. Traore, president, let me give you a good example. He saw that his people were buying ketchup. What do you guys call it in Africa? Sauce. What do you call it?
Tomato sauce. I think they call it tomato sauce.
Tomato sauce. And you know what he started doing? He went and bought the equipment to give to the farmers. He said to the farmers, you plant tomatoes. I will buy, the government will buy tomatoes from you. And then they put a tomato manufacturing factory that is now manufacturing tomato for the whole of West Africa. That's what I'm talking about. Understanding how we can solve our own problems instead of trying to have America solve our problem. It breaks my heart that right now the deal that DRC is making with America, the deal is connected to the minerals. And we are just coming, we're coming from another hostage to another host. We're coming from another frying pan to another frying pan. Is because our leaders don't have the capacity and then don't have the ability to be able to do that. Coming to my ministry, what we do in our ministry, we do what's called sustainable ministries. We don't plant churches, we plant centers that are sustainable. And how do we become sustainable? We help the pastor. Right now we're doing bananas. We plant plantain. and then we buy it from them. Whichever church they sell it to lead to our organization first, I will buy it from them, and then we'll distribute it through our chain. And we're also doing dragon fruit. We have a dragon fruit market in Europe, in Asia, and we are now growing dragon fruit for those churches that want to go plantain or dragon fruit, and we're doing that. And then all the pastors that come into our ministry, we also help them to have their own village. Each pastor who comes to our ministry needs to have his own retirement plan. And we help them. And how do we help them? Every pastor that comes to our ministry, we give him goat. He can choose between goats, or he can choose in between road runners, which are the chickens. We have mbuzi or goats that we help them with, and he has to have his village. If he does not have one, we help him buy one, because land is very important. And I take care of my pastors. And right now, with our guys in the refugees that have now come out from who are in the DRC, we're helping them build their church, and we have taken them out of the refugee camp, and we have rented a place for them, and we are buying a center for them in Uganda. We are very intentional that I don't lead all the ministries. I facilitate the ministries, as the word says. We look for leaders. L, E, we equip. A, we aid, giving them tools. And D, we continue to develop and mentor them.
This is oh my goodness, what an opportunity this is. This has been for us to have you in this podcast in the studio with us today, because the things you're bringing to our attention, my brother, these are things that are so real. And oftentimes we see organizations running or falling apart, but we are not paying attention to the principles that should be part of the organization. Now, I do understand that we do have some of our listeners and viewers here who are our listener from Accra says, would it be possible to touch on the leadership crisis in Africa? Burkina Faso, please. I mean, I know that we have had some different comments coming up. One of the things that really upsets me is sometimes when something good is happening, you have people who try to undermine what is happening, because they're so used to milking us and taking advantage of us. So when we rise up and we say enough is enough, the people who have been benefiting from us, they don't want that. I have seen African leaders who started well, who could have turned things around for the betterment of their own countries, end up with people on their team who wanted them to stay on to ruin things because they were benefiting from that. Now, I am not in Burkina Faso, but all I know is here is a young leader who has stood up. Having come in through a coup, he is actually saying, I came in so that we empower people, and that's what I want. I mean, I'm hearing that he's saying, I don't need all the other luxuries that you have been giving to presidents. This is who I am with doing this for the people. And I know it'll be wonderful. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some people into today's Africa from Burkina Faso so that we can actually have conversations with them. And I think from what I'm picking up from Burkina Faso, there's such an openness. I don't think they are shutting down people from the outside to not say anything about what's happening. They're being transparent. And I think from what you said about lead international ministries, that's something you value. You want people to know what is happening. So I'm hoping that if we have any people around that area who are able to be our guests, please connect with Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, and our chief engineer here, Mr. TYB, would be more than happy to link me up with you as well. And then there's another thought again here that's coming from someone who says, do you think the youth in Africa are ready to take over the leadership. I think that is an emphatic yes. Yes, yes. Because when you look at leaders like President Ibrahim Traore and how he has risen and what he is doing and being a young man, I think even some of our older presidents are learning from him and realizing, you know what, it's probably time. You see, just because you're stepping down to hand over, it doesn't mean you're a failure. You don't have to die in office. You don't have to die in office. You know, listen, Jesus died for all of us. There's no need for you to die for the kind of leadership that you want to rise up for. You can always pass it on in humility to others as well. And we're finding there's someone here from New York City, Diallo, who says, Dr. FM, please, any program on Burkina Faso will be appreciated. It sounds like Burkina Faso is right there these days, and rightly so.
Dr. Francis, you're so right. You're so right. I think just to answer there, that there is emerging leaders in Africa that are coming up. One of the other examples that I just wanted to encourage our listeners, it's what's happening in Botswana. There's a serious transformation happening in Botswana.
That's right.
And also look what's happening in Angola. There's a serious, transformation of leadership that's happening
Namibia.
In Namibia, that's right. So what I wanted just to encourage guys is we would really like to engage. And I think one of the things that I was talking about in React, it's how do we now help capacitate these kind of leaders and help them come alongside them? And we need to start thinking of serious, areas of how do we need to, help the youth? What their needs? How do we train them, and how do we also start helping them? And I love what's going on in West Africa there, because let's stand with each other. Umuntu ngemuntu ngabantu. We are stronger together. We are better together, and we need to stand with what's happening with this young man. I really love what he's doing, and I pray that he continues to become transparent, and then he continues to become accountable, and then brings in a new system.
You touched on a big word there, sir, accountable. Accountability is really, really important. And I think when we see how he is bringing the country together, now people are beginning to see things differently. And these are the same people now who are standing up with him and standing up for him, because they are seeing who he is. So this is really, really wonderful, and I'm just so delighted that we have had the opportunity to have you here, the Rev.Caoch Lovejoy Tirivepi, talking about leadership and leading in unplanned and chaotic situations, and that's what we find in life. Just as we come toward the end, someone has said that whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, there are usually three things that have to take place. Whether you're going to do a bad thing, whether you're going to fall into temptation, or whether you're going to stand up and do the right thing. And I think you have exemplified this. So they say, number one, you have to have a desire. You have to have a strong desire for something. And we see that you're passionate about leadership, and that's commendable. But not only do you have to have a desire, but you have to have skill. You are trained, you are equipped, and you're now in a position to equip other people. And lastly, there has to be an opportunity. An opportunity has to be created for you to be able to put into practice the kinds of things that you have been sharing with us. So as we come to the end of our program for today, by the way, we will have you back, and that's not a threat, it's a promise. We want you to think along these lines and just say, what kind of opportunities should be created so that the kinds of things you're talking about, sir, is shared not just with our church leaders. I know you're a man of the cloth. And by the way, I heard congratulations on going back to the church you were in Colorado. And it speaks well of you, sir. It really does. After so many years that they would ask you to come back, they saw something in you. And we're grateful to God for that. So how do we take these things you're talking about, sir, and we want to put that in the greater Pan-African movement that's emerging? What can we do, and how can we enhance and facilitate these kinds of things that you're passionate about?
Wow, thank you so much for having me again, and I really appreciate that. One of the things that I would really like to do is, come back and do my whole chapters that I do on Padare, leadership thing. But coming back to what you just said, when there is, I love the desire that there's been a very serious desire in Africa. But what happens is when we have leaders who are desiring to bring change to Africa, they tend to kill our leaders, or they tend to silence our leaders. But we need to start now understanding that this is not just about one man, but this is a movement. When a movement starts happening, it takes momentum. But we still are finding each other. Let's find each other. I love some of the things that the other guys are talking about. Would love to hear what they have and what they're saying. And then we also now need to have a momentum. And then when you have a momentum that's starting now, which I love this dialogue because it helps us to move the nation in the right direction. And I believe that it's going to happen with the younger leadership, but we are not going to kill each other, or we're not going to kill our emerging leaders. It breaks my heart when you look at all the leaders in Africa that have tried to emerge and try to bring these things here, they've been silent. So we need to guard or protect this momentum that we have.
Excellent. Oh, this is priceless. Thank you for these nuggets, sir. It's been a real pleasure having you in this program today, talking about leading or leadership in unplanned and chaotic contexts or situations. Life is so daily. Things happen that may not be on the agenda, but when they happen, we need to have principles that we fall back on. And so, again, it's hard to imagine that it's just a little over an hour that we've been going. And I just feel like we just started, So we will definitely have you back on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you for joining us and having been our guests, today as well, virtually. Some are live and some are online, just listening in. We're just so delighted that you've made time to be with us. So again, please take a moment to log in and subscribe so that you like and share this channel with people within your own networks as well. We are on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course on StreamYard. So again, thank you for making time to be with us today. We will be together again next week, God willing, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is your host, Dr. FM. And we're delighted again. Thank you, Rev.Caoch Lovejoy Tirivepi. We know you're a busy man, but thank you for waking up a little early to join us. We know that you are well on the other side of the U.S.